On August 15th, 1997, Peter Brooks and his girlfriend, Karen Hall, planned a quiet weekend getaway to the Eagle Cap Wilderness. What was supposed to be a joyful retreat quickly turned into a nightmare. Karen never returned. 15 years later, Peter finally broke his silence, recounting the terrifying events to the LeGrand, Oregon Police Department. "It was meant to be one of the most memorable days of my life," Peter said. "A day I would remember forever. I had planned to propose to Karen, the love of my life. But what unfolded haunted me to my core." Peter and Karen had been dating for 3 years, both 23 when they realized they wanted to spend their lives together. The only step remaining was the marriage proposal. Karen had nudged him several times, curious about when he would ask, but Peter had been saving for the perfect ring, a custom-made piece with dolphins and a large pink diamond, her dream design. He worked tirelessly, scrimping on his apprentice salary, until he finally had enough. When the ring was ready, he felt a deep sense of pride, imagining Karen's joy when he would present it. Their shared love for camping made August, with its warm weather, the perfect time for a weekend escape. As Friday arrived, they loaded their gear and drove toward Eagle Cap National Forest. Peter planned a surprise for Karen, unsure of how she would react. As they neared a fork in the road, Karen suggested taking the left path toward a new area. A chill ran down Peter's spine, a fleeting warning he dismissed as nerves. The dirt road quickly became rough, jarring their car. Karen laughed, making light of the bumpy path. Peter forced a smile, concealing the uneasy feeling creeping through him. He wanted the weekend to be perfect, not haunted by apprehension. After driving down the bumpy left fork for over an hour, Peter and Karen finally reached a dead end. Peter parked the car and surveyed the area. "Looks like we can set up camp almost anywhere," he said. The forest was dense with pine trees, and the darkness was thick. No moonlight until the following night. Karen smiled, relieved they didn't have to drive anymore. Peter grabbed the camping gear and set up their 2-person tent quickly. They unrolled their sleeping bags and mats inside, making themselves comfortable. Next, they gathered firewood. Unlike other crowded camping spots, this secluded area offered plenty of dry wood. Peter still felt a lingering unease, a subtle warning that no one else had ventured this far. He brushed it off, attributing it to the rough drive and the eerie quiet. Once the fire was roaring, they began cooking dinner. Steaks sizzled over the open flames, and the aroma filled the night air. Potatoes and peppers followed, roasted alongside the meat. The fire offered warmth and a sense of security, a primitive comfort Peter and Karen both cherished. Karen retrieved their camping chairs, and they sat together, holding hands while their meal cooked. Conversation and laughter slowly eased Peter's tension. When dinner was ready, they ate under the stars, the uneasiness of the road and forest fading in the warmth of the fire and each other's company. Afterward, Karen brought out a bottle of red wine. They toasted, sipping and laughing, but Peter's mind wandered back to the ring in his pocket. Excitement and fear collided as he contemplated proposing. Karen noticed his nervous energy. "What's wrong? You've been acting strange all evening," she asked. Peter shrugged, forcing a casual laugh. "This place just gives me the creeps," he muttered, masking the real reason for his anxiousness. As the night deepened, they grew tipsy. Eventually, Peter helped Karen into the tent, and they both settled into their sleeping bags. Karen fell asleep almost immediately, the sound of her snores familiar and comforting. Peter, exhausted yet restless, drifted into uneasy dreams, unaware that the night ahead would shatter everything. Peter's dreams were strange, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Surreal, disjointed visions played across his mind, impossible to explain, like a movie with no logic. He woke the next morning with the sun beating on the tent and a throbbing headache from the red wine. Karen was still asleep beside him, snoring softly, oblivious to his discomfort. He lay there for a while, massaging his temples, before Karen stirred. "You've been awake long?" she asked groggily. "Not long," Peter replied, "but my head feels like it's splitting. Red wine never agrees with me." Karen smiled, teasing him gently, and they got up for breakfast. Despite the warmth of the morning, Peter couldn't shake the residual unease from the previous night. The couple spent the day exploring the surrounding wilderness. It was an unfamiliar area, full of hidden trails and untouched nature. But Peter soon noticed a change in Karen. She grew distant and cold, barely speaking, and her laughter faded. Peter's mind raced, wondering if he had upset her or done something wrong, yet no clear reason came to mind. As evening approached, her silence became almost palpable. Peter decided to ignore it, focusing on preparing dinner over the fire. The forest around them was unusually quiet, and an eerie stillness settled in. Without warning, Karen abruptly walked into the tent, saying nothing. Peter paused, confused and worried, unsure what had triggered her sudden retreat. After a few minutes, Peter followed her inside, trying to calm himself. He zipped up the tent and settled into his sleeping bag, turning away to respect her space. Sleep came quickly, but it was restless. A faint, wet clicking noise stirred him awake. He froze, straining to listen. It moved among the trees, shifting position, too deliberate to be ordinary wildlife. Peter's heart raced. He wondered if he should call out, but hesitation held him back. Something about the sound was unnatural, and fear gripped him. The forest that had seemed peaceful just hours ago now felt alive with unseen danger. Peter's heart pounded as the wet clicking noises grew louder. He sat upright, scanning the tent, and realized Karen was gone. Only her half-open sleeping bag remained. Panic surged through him. How had she unzipped the tent and left without making a sound? He had been a light sleeper and hadn't drunk any alcohol, yet he hadn't noticed her leaving. The clicking sounds intensified, moving closer. Fear gripped him, a cold sweat forming on his forehead. Peter debated calling her name but hesitated, unsure if it was even Karen or something else. Rational thoughts battled with primal terror. Maybe she's just going to the bathroom, he told himself, though the zipped-up tent made that impossible. Minutes dragged by as Peter sat frozen. Then, a horrifying scream cut through the stillness. "Peter! Peter! Peter!" The voice was unmistakably Karen's, frantic and desperate. "You need to get out! They're coming for you!" she shouted. Without thinking, Peter leapt from the sleeping bag and unzipped the tent, running toward the car. Through the trees, he could barely make out Karen, moving strangely and covered in blood. The forest seemed alive with movement, dark shapes slipping between the trees accompanied by the wet clicking sound. Adrenaline surged as Peter reached the car. He fumbled for the keys on the dashboard, his hands shaking violently. After several tense seconds, he managed to lock the doors. When he turned, he saw Karen fully illuminated by the moonlight. Her eyes were empty, lifeless. "They came for me," she said softly. "You must leave now, or they'll kill you." Peter's chest tightened with fear as shadowy figures, at least 7 or 8 feet tall, emerged behind her. Peter jammed the gear into drive, slamming the accelerator. The figures barely seemed affected as he raced down the mountain. He could see Karen in the rearview mirror, surrounded by dark, moving silhouettes. Dust rose behind him, but the nightmare was far from over. Peter's car tore down the mountain road, his hands gripping the steering wheel as terror coursed through him. The scene behind him was surreal. Karen, drenched in blood and surrounded by shadowy, towering figures, standing motionless, yet terrifyingly alive. Dust and debris kicked up by the car made visibility even worse, but he dared not look away. His mind raced, trying to process what he had just witnessed. Nothing made sense. How had Karen appeared like that? Who, or what, were those figures? Every instinct screamed to keep driving, to escape before it was too late. He slammed the accelerator harder, praying the car would hold together on the rough mountain road. In his panic, he remembered the ring in his pocket, the very reason for their trip. Now, it felt meaningless compared to the immediate fight for survival. Peter's heart pounded as he navigated sharp turns and uneven terrain. He glanced in the rearview mirror, catching fleeting glimpses of the dark silhouettes. Karen's form seemed to hover among them, eerily calm despite her bloody appearance. As he approached the main forest road, Peter realized he couldn't stop. Returning home was a risk. He would be blamed for Karen's disappearance, and who would believe the truth? Something primal took over. He had to run, and he had to stay ahead. Without hesitation, he turned the car around, racing away from his own town, leaving everything familiar behind. Adrenaline carried him forward, yet a chilling awareness settled over him. The events in Eagle Cap weren't over. He had glimpsed a reality beyond comprehension, one that haunted him with every mile. Peter's mind cycled through disbelief, fear, and guilt. Karen's warning echoed, "You must leave now, or they'll kill you." From that night on, Peter became a fugitive from both memory and circumstance, a man forever chased by the unknown horrors he had encountered. The Eagle Cap Wilderness, once a place of beauty and adventure, had become a permanent shadow in his life, a nightmare etched into his very soul. Peter has been running ever since that night in Eagle Cap. Every time he closes his eyes, the memory of Karen's lifeless eyes and the towering shadowy figures haunts him. He avoids the mountains entirely, the place he once loved now a symbol of unspeakable terror. Even years later, the fear lingers, a constant reminder that some truths are too horrifying to confront. He never told anyone what really happened. Who would believe him? Friends, family, even the authorities would dismiss his story as delusion or grief. And yet, the memory feels more real than anything else. The feeling of the dark forest pressing in, the wet clicking sounds echoing in the night, and Karen's bloodied figure appearing in the moonlight. It all remains vivid in his mind. Peter knows that the events of that weekend were beyond explanation. Some force, some presence, changed everything in a single night. He remains tormented by the thought that had he hesitated even a second longer, he might have lost not only himself, but perhaps even Karen, completely to the unknown horrors of the wilderness. Though he has escaped the immediate danger, the psychological scars persist. He can't return to his old life, can't reclaim the peace he once had. The Eagle Cap Wilderness has left an indelible mark on him, a reminder that some places, some nights, are meant to be feared. Peter's warning is clear. The wilderness is not always as it seems. Hidden dangers lurk, waiting for the unwary. What happened to him that night is a story he cannot share freely, a nightmare that will follow him for the rest of his life. For those who dare venture into the unknown, he offers one piece of advice: tread carefully and beware what waits in the dark. The horrors of Eagle Cap are real, and some encounters are impossible to escape.